You are not cursed, you are not weak. You are simply a poor strategist in the game of your own life. Every time you get close to what you want, you destroy it. Why? Because deep down you fear power more than failure. In this lesson, I, Niccolò Machiavelli, will reveal why you keep sabotaging yourself and how to stop handing your enemies the very weapons they will use against you. You speak often of wanting control. You complain when outcomes escape your hand, when others fail you, when fate turns against your ambitions. You cry out against chaos, against powerlessness. You say you want control over your life, your emotions, your results, your future. But do you truly? Or do you merely want the illusion of control without the weight it demands? I have watched men beg to command armies, then collapse beneath the burden of leadership. I have seen merchants who dreamt of riches but recoiled when fortune required ruthless choices. And I have witnessed scholars who sought truth but trembled when truth revealed their own cowardice. What they all shared was this: they mistook desire for readiness. They wanted to feel in control, but refused to accept the price of true power, responsibility. Responsibility is not poetic. It is not wrapped in glory. It is a brutal burden. It means accepting that everything that happens under your reign, whether in your life, your relationships, your ambitions, is your fault. Not your parents, not society's, not your enemies, yours. This is where self-sabotage begins. The moment you approach real authority over your life, you turn away. You destroy what you've built, not because you don't want it, but because having it means owning it. And ownership terrifies you more than failure. When you are the architect of your victory, you must also be the architect of your collapse. You would rather say, "I failed because of them," than "I failed because of me." And so, when success is near, you destroy it, just in time to preserve the illusion that the world is to blame, not you. This is the mind of a subject, not a ruler. When a man truly desires power, he begins with himself. He does not control the actions of others. He controls his reactions. He does not attempt to bend the winds. He sharpens his sails. And when fortune tests him, he does not pray, complain, or flee. He accepts that he is the commander, and with that every defeat is also a verdict on his judgment. But you flee, not physically, no. You flee in subtle, cowardly ways. You procrastinate on the goal that might change your life. You pick fights with allies. You distract yourself with comfort. You retreat into indecision, perfectionism, and doubt. These are not accidents. These are assassins you've hired to kill your own potential just before it rises high enough to demand responsibility. Why? Because once you succeed, what then? The world will expect you to repeat it. Your enemies will aim higher. And worst of all, you'll no longer have your favorite excuse, powerlessness. Success strips you of the right to blame others. It demands you act like a ruler, not a victim, and for many, this is too terrifying to bear. And so you burn your empire before it is even built. You tear the fruit from the tree before it ripens. You sabotage your relationships, your health, your career, not because you hate yourself, but because you fear stepping into the throne and being unworthy of it. This is not weakness, it is rebellion, a quiet mutiny against the very version of yourself you claim to want. You fear the crown, you fear the sword, you fear the eyes of the people watching. So instead, you crawl back into the shadows and tell yourself that fate was cruel. But fate had nothing to do with it. It was your fear of owning the kingdom you claim to seek. It was your terror of responsibility disguised as noble failure. It was your unwillingness to be the ruler of your own outcomes. You want control, but control is not handed to you. It is claimed with consequence. It means if your life is empty, it is because you failed to fill it. If your relationships are broken, it is because you allowed them to be. If you remain unseen, unheard, unloved, it is because you sabotage the very structures that would have allowed you to rise. You claim you want to change. You say you are tired of the cycles, the chaos, the failures. You declare that you are ready to become someone greater, stronger, wiser, more capable. And yet, every time transformation begins to stir, you freeze, not because change is impossible, but because you are still in bondage to your old self. The self that lost, the self that was ignored, the self that failed, was abandoned, betrayed, broken, humiliated. That version of you still speaks, still rules from the shadows, still drapes its chains around your future and calls it realism. You do not merely remember your defeats. You have built your identity around them. Like a republic too long at peace, you have become attached to the constitution of weakness. You no longer question its authority. You defend it, protect it, obey it. The very pain that once wounded you now defines you. And this is the most dangerous kind of sabotage because it disguises itself as self-knowledge. Listen carefully. There is a vast difference between remembering your pain and worshipping it. When you were young, perhaps you failed publicly. You were rejected when you tried. You were ridiculed when you stepped into the light, and so you learned to shrink. You taught yourself not to try. You convinced yourself that ambition invites pain, and that survival lies in modesty, in caution, in silence. But you did not just learn this, you made it law. You turned a single wound into a lifelong belief. You swore loyalty to the part of you that was weak, because weakness at least kept you safe. That old self, the defeated version of you, was once necessary. It protected you in a time of helplessness, but now it is your captor. It whispers in your mind every time you attempt to evolve. It reminds you of past embarrassments, of previous losses, not to inform you, but to restrain you. It is the enemy within the walls, the traitor wearing your face. And the most tragic part is this: you believe it is you. You confuse that old self with your true identity. So when greatness calls, when power knocks, when a better path opens, you decline not because you don't want it, but because you don't think it belongs to you. You think that the throne belongs to someone else, because somewhere in your mind, you still see yourself as the one who failed. This is the invisible prison of past identity. You build a new strategy, a new goal, a new path, but you march under the same old flag. You try to run, but you wear the boots of defeat. You try to speak with authority, but your voice still trembles with old doubt. So when people look at you and do not follow, do not believe, do not respect, you believe they are rejecting who you are now. But they are merely responding to the ghost you still carry with you. If a prince returns to his city after exile, wearing the rags he fled in, no one will kneel. If you wish to rise, you must shed the symbols of your previous fall. That includes the language, the posture, the thoughts, the excuses. You must stop consulting the past you every time the present you wants to act. You must exile that version from your court and burn every document that declares their rule. Yet, most will not. Most will continue to sabotage their progress because they have mistaken the defeated self for the authentic self. They will say, "This is just who I am," as if that sentence were noble, as if permanence in identity were a virtue. It is not, it is a cage. Your identity must be fluid, adaptive, strategic. Power belongs to those who do not serve their past, but sculpt it into fuel for what comes next. But instead, you remain faithful to your scars, you make them sacred, and so, every time change begins, you sabotage it. You turn back. You return to the known, no matter how limiting, no matter how lifeless, because the unknown demands you betray the past version of yourself. And you do not yet have the heart to do that. you still feel loyalty to the pain, and that loyalty is your chain. You speak of wanting more clarity, more strength, more freedom. You say you are ready for a higher life, a greater destiny. And yet, every time discomfort arises, you retreat, you delay, you invent justifications. You tell yourself that the timing is not right, that you need to rest, to wait, to heal. But the truth is simpler and far more brutal. You have confused comfort with safety. You have mistaken the feeling of ease for the presence of security. And this illusion is costing you your power. The world has taught you this lie well. It tells you that if something feels difficult, it must be wrong. That if the path is painful, it must be dangerous. That success will come gently, that it will arrive wrapped in warmth and ease, welcomed like a guest. But anyone who has held power, who has built anything lasting, knows the opposite is true. Discomfort is not a sign of danger. It is the toll paid at the gate of transformation. The discomfort you avoid is the currency of strength. And yet, you choose softness. You build your life not around your values, but around your comforts. You say you want discipline, but you refuse to sacrifice your pleasures. You say you want freedom, but you cannot endure the silence required to create it. So instead, you build a nest of conveniences. You surround yourself with distractions, indulgences, and half-truths that keep you sedated. You call it peace, but it is only sedation. You call it balance, but it is only escape. Comfort becomes your strategy, but it is a strategy designed for defeat. Look closely at your habits. Every morning you delay the hard task. Every evening you reward yourself for victories you did not earn. You scroll, you snack, you sleep not because you are tired, but because you are afraid. You fear the pressure of growth, so you bury yourself in softness. You fear the judgment of others, so you hide behind screens and noise. You fear commitment, so you tell yourself that rest is self-love. You sabotage your rise by placing comfort in the throne where ambition should sit. You say you are waiting for the right moment. But what you are truly waiting for is for the discomfort to disappear, and it never will, because discomfort is the companion of power. The weight of discipline, the sting of rejection, the strain of patience, the ache of restraint, these are the guards at the door of mastery. And you keep running from them, hoping there is another entrance. There is not. Consider a kingdom in decline. Its rulers grow fat, its gods grow lazy, its citizens are entertained instead of trained. The city falls not from war, but from rot. Comfort is the rot of personal greatness. It whispers that you are fine just as you are. It tells you to take the easy path today and fix it tomorrow. And so, day by day, you drift further from the strength you pretend to seek. You sabotage yourself by choosing what feels safe instead of what builds strength. You say yes to what is easy and no to what is necessary. You let emotions govern your actions instead of your aims. The problem is not that you are incapable, it is that you are ruled by a false sense of security. You believe that comfort means survival. But in truth, comfort is the camouflage of decline. You are not meant to remain soft. Not if you seek power. Not if you seek impact. The human spirit was not built to be pacified. It was built to sharpen itself against resistance. Yet you surround yourself with cushions and wonder why your edge is dull. You avoid the cold winds and wonder why your lungs are weak. You dodge the battlefield and wonder why no one fears your presence. There is no enemy more subtle than comfort. No saboteur more trusted. It wears the mask of self-care, of patience, of recovery. But beneath it lies delay, weakness, and decay. You cling to it like a raft, thinking it will save you, when in truth it keeps you from swimming. And the longer you stay in this state, the more foreign discomfort becomes. And when discomfort is foreign, growth becomes impossible. You say you want to win. You speak of success, of respect, of reaching heights others only dream of. You talk about strategy, about mastery, about becoming untouchable, but your actions reveal another truth entirely. You do not truly seek victory. You seek applause. You are not building an empire. You are performing for a crowd. And every time that crowd does not cheer, you falter, you retreat. You sabotage yourself not because you lack ability, but because you cannot bear to be misunderstood. This is the tragedy of the modern soul. It confuses visibility with power. You believe that being seen is the same as being respected, that being liked is the same as being feared, that being praised is the same as being victorious. But these are illusions. Validation is a gift that others give you, often when it serves their own interests. Victory is something you take regardless of how they feel. When you crave validation, you become dependent on external eyes. You hesitate before every decision, wondering how it will look. You measure your worth by how many approve instead of how many submit. You dress your actions in the language of virtue, so no one dares to challenge you. You weaken your speech to avoid offense. You soften your ambition to appear humble, and in doing so, you betray your own strategy. You twist the blade in your own hand, just to earn a smile from the masses. Look carefully at your past. How many times did you lower your aim because you feared being called arrogant? How often did you downplay your desires so you would not appear too different, too bold, too ambitious? You were not beaten by your enemies. You surrendered to the opinions of people who have no stake in your life. Their approval became your goal, and your power evaporated the moment they denied it. This is the root of your sabotage. It is not incompetence. It is not laziness. It is the addiction to being seen a certain way. You want to be noble, likable, admired. But these are costumes. The powerful are rarely adored while they rise. Their choices often appear cruel, their motives misunderstood. But they continue forward because their eyes are not fixed on the audience, they are fixed on the outcome. When your goal is validation, your strategy becomes reactive. You chase trends, you over-explain, you defend yourself constantly. You shift to please the crowd, but power is not given to those who bend. It is given to those who command. And to command, you must become comfortable with being disliked, mocked, even hated. You must endure the silence that comes when you stop performing and start building. And here lies the dilemma. You say you want greatness, but you also want to be loved for every step you take along the way. You want the throne, but not the isolation that comes with it. You want influence, but not the accusations. You want dominance, but only if no one feels threatened. This contradiction will tear you apart, and it already has. Every time your actions are guided by the question, will they approve? You place the sword in their hand and your neck beneath it. You crave validation because it feels safe, because it feels like control. But it is a counterfeit form of power. The applause may come today and vanish tomorrow. The likes may rise and fall with the algorithm. The praise may shift with the wind. But victory, real, undeniable, untouchable victory, is eternal. It is carved into history, not handed out by an audience. And the deeper truth is this: most people do not want you to win, not truly. They want you to stay in reach. They want you to be impressive, but not intimidating, ambitious, but still struggling. Once you rise beyond their comfort, their cheers become silent. And in that silence, your weakness is exposed. If you are still addicted to their approval, you will fall. You will sabotage your momentum. You will slow down, shrink back, dim your light just to hear their voices again. And when you do, you will call it balance. But it is betrayal of your own ascent. You are not cursed. You are not broken. You are at war with yourself. You claim to seek power, but you fear the responsibility it brings. You kneel before the identity shaped by old wounds, swearing loyalty to your weakest self. You hide in comfort, thinking it protects you, when it only dulls your edge. And worst of all, you reach for applause instead of victory, mistaking attention for strength. This is why you sabotage yourself. Not because you are unworthy of power, but because part of you still clings to the safety of powerlessness. You destroy what you build because you fear what comes next, what it will demand of you, how it will change you, how it will isolate you. You fall not because you were defeated, but because you never fully committed to standing. If you wish to rise, you must become your own strategist, not your own traitor. You must be willing to kill the version of you that was built in fear. You must stop seeking comfort, stop chasing approval, and stop asking permission to become what you were always meant to be. There is no enemy more dangerous than the one within, and there is no victory more powerful than conquering that inner rebellion. You are not a victim, you are not helpless, you are simply undisciplined in the art of ruling yourself. So choose, stay loyal to the weakness that sabotages you, or rise and rule.